Hello YouTube and welcome to the Joel Arsenault Disaster Zone, where every day a hurricane hits in my garage. Actually, it looks a little bit that way, but believe it or not, I spent over 8 hours cleaning up in here today. I did then proceed to start doing a bunch more work, but yeah, it still doesn't look like I spent all that time cleaning. In this video, there's going to be kind of an update on top of an update. If you stick around to the end of the video, I'm going to talk about moving and the possibility of me taking my equipment with me and possibly building some composite parts this winter. Spoiler alert, it doesn't look terribly promising, but nothing set in stone for sure. Definitely looks like I'm going to be moving. I've got the agreement and read it through and everything looks good, so I'll probably be moving in a couple of weeks. The reason why this video is kind of a weird mishmash of footage is because I went biking the other day, which you guys might eventually see some footage of. And at the end of that, I ended up lending my Hero 9 and my memory cards to a friend so that they could edit some of the footage that was on those memory cards. And I still don't have the memory cards back, so I'm currently recording on a 32 gig memory card instead of the 128s that I normally use. Which is unfortunate because I plan on taking the SXR 800 out and testing it tomorrow. I actually did a couple of things to it, which you guys will find out about later in this video. So hopefully I have enough memory on a couple of 32 gig memory cards that I can actually get some footage on that. And I guess probably before this ends up way too long, I should just get into the video. Let's open this oven door and see what we have inside. All right. It stays quite warm with just the light on. So almost 100 Fahrenheit. What I did to get a more accurate, safer temperature this time was I actually used some of the tacky tape and I put the probe directly on the part. So if you can see here, this is the temperature probe. Normally you would stick that in a chunk of meat. I put it right on the part, and that allowed me to monitor the surface temperature of the part instead of just the air in the oven. I was realizing last night or early this morning that this could be one of the last parts that I get to build. The departure date for me moving is coming up pretty quick. It's actually in about 2 weeks, so let's crack into this part and see what we have. I am going to be really disappointed. I might not even release this footage if this one doesn't turn out, because I don't think I really have time to make another one. Anyway, let's not go there. Let's hope that it turned out. So let's peel this. Oh wow, did that ever come off easy? I'm quite surprised it didn't leak. Let's hope that that means that the release agent worked really well on the part as well. I cleaned off these flanges with brake cleaner. I went around it twice with brake cleaner before I stuck the tack tape down, so let's hope the release agent worked that well on the part, and it pops right out. Because of the way I laid down the infusion mesh on the edges, I actually wrapped the infusion mesh around the part. I don't think I'm actually going to be able to get it off. I'm actually going to have to take the part out of the mold, and then once it's out of the mold, I'm going to have to cut the edges off and then peel the peel ply off. Oh, it came right out of the mold. I was worried about it coming out of the mold. I was thinking last night, it's gonna get stuck in there and ruin my mold. Well, I guess that answers the question as to how hard it's gonna come out of the mold. Based on the way it infused, the rate at which it infused, and how I laid these out, I think it might have worked. I hope it worked. You guys get to see first. Let's see. How did it end up with dry spots there? Seriously? This is going to be a usable part. It's also going to be really light. This is going to be a usable part, but I did end up with a dry spot here and a couple of random dry spots. One here, and one here. So I guess this is a bit of a learning experience. I'll be able to figure out from this what I need to do differently. I also made a screw up here. I made a mistake and got some of the infusion mesh actually onto the part. That was dumb. The nice thing about this is that this mold did the trick, did what I wanted it to do. You can see there's a very defined line around where this part needs to be cut out. This hole here is also quite defined, and the drill out locations are also very obvious. There is one problem with the mold that I made, and that has to do with the actual part that I copied. If I measure between the edge of the hole, which is what I used, between the edge of the hole and the edge of the side, this is 12.35 millimeters. Down here it's 11.76. Over here we have 13.4, and over here 13.5. After I made my first ride plate and tried to fit it up, I had a little bit of difficulty fitting it up, and then I looked at this one, and you can actually see that the holes are ovaled out. You can see that this hole bulges down towards the bottom, and this hole I think goes in that way, and a couple of the holes are just bigger, like this hole is actually bigger. So anyway, it's going to be a usable part, but it does have some cosmetic flaws. Additionally, I messed up here and I put the infusion mesh so far in that it actually went underneath and onto the cosmetic surface, or the visible surface of the part. So I am going to cut that out of there, but I wanted to show you guys before I did. And now we'll talk about basically the differences between these and how I'm going to mount them differently. So the original bed plate, this is the original one, and I haven't showed you guys, but I made some aluminum inserts for it. I don't think I showed you guys anyway. So these aluminum inserts are 3/4 of an inch, basically like a 3/4 inch washer, and then they go through a 1/2 inch hole, and then I'll just pull it out. This one will come out. That'll make it easy. So yeah, this is what it is. It goes in from this side, and this sits up against the hull. You tighten it up, and it sits at the right height and in the right place. This ride plate I actually made a little different for a few reasons. So what I planned on doing with this is actually putting these shims, or washers, dowels, whatever you want to call them. These are actually going to go in from this side. And that is going to do a few things. One of the main things it's going to do is allow me to make the carbon fiber thinner, and it's actually going to give a very accurate mounting surface. So That is going to sit in there just like that, and I will put a stainless steel washer on the outside. I might actually use acetal or Delrin, something similar to Teflon, because plastic is guaranteed not to have any sort of reaction or corrosion with the carbon fiber. I'm going to weigh these now and show you guys the difference in weight. It's kind of unfair because this one has some aluminum inserts in it and this one doesn't. I forget what it is exactly, but the original one is about 6.6 pounds, I believe. The scale isn't hefty enough to support it, so I have to use a different scale. But this one is more accurate, so I want to use it to weigh these. So this is the first one that I made with the inserts in it, and it is 2 pounds, 2.8 ounces, 989 grams. 1 pound, 14.5 ounces, 865 grams. So, because I don't actually have the footage right now of me building this, I'll just explain to you guys what happened here using the mold. I had the cloth in the mold like this, and I wanted to make sure that I infused this area really well because I had troubles on the last part that I made. So what I did was I actually used the infusion mesh and put it on the flange like this, and then put it over the top of the cloth as well. And so we'll just use it like that as a representation. What happened was I ended up sticking it down at this end and then tried to line it up at this end, but what must have happened, I ended up sliding it in too far and actually getting it underneath the edge of the cloth inside the mold. So now when we take it out of the mold, it has some of the infusion mesh as part of the part. I have these aluminum spacers in here. You can see that it doesn't quite come through all the way through the carbon. And then I've got these stainless washers that are going to sit in here like this. And from the other side, it goes on there like that. So there is a 4mm shoulder here, and what I'm probably going to do is epoxy these in. They don't need to be, but that would stop them from falling out. Alright YouTube, there you have it. The ride plate is bolted in place. I don't know how well the camera will pick that up. What I might actually do on the final version is make the shims on the front a little thicker. It is nice and solid for sure. And I'm actually going to leave it on there because I'm hoping to get this out next week and test it. So, yeah, looking forward to that. I might actually pull it off and put a clear coat on it because I think it's going to look nice clear coated. So it's currently 10 after 8 in the evening. And I have been trying to put a coat of epoxy on my bed plate for several hours now. What seems to be happening is that the mold release or the release agent that I'm using gets into the material and won't allow me to top coat it in any way. I cleaned it off with dish soap, 2 different kinds of dish soap. I heated it, I cleaned it with acetone, I cleaned it with alcohol, I cleaned it with spray 9. After each time I cleaned it, I tried putting on some epoxy. I've got epoxy mixed up, and I brush it on, and it pretty much just beads off. Now, it could partly be due to the fact that the surface isn't terribly scuffed up or terribly rough, but it shouldn't do that. So I'm trying one more thing. I used some Comet. I actually used spray 9 again and used some Comet. So I'm fairly certain that the release agent that I'm using, let's see if we can find the can here. Here it is, this free coat. I'm almost positive that this is a silicone-based release agent. It probably even says on it here somewhere. Silicone is notoriously hard to remove from stuff. I was hoping to actually put the epoxy on it and have it cured so that I could show you guys. I made all of these spacers and had it installed on the bottom of the hull, and yeah, I turned the ends of the bolts down so they would start in there nice. And yeah, it looks like it's just not going to happen today. What? Oh, this is not what I was expecting this to be my CDI, but this is actually the Stator Coil for the SXR 800. Interesting. That didn't take very long to get here. Here we have a new stator for the SXR 800, so I will be getting that in and hopefully fairly quickly getting that tested. Inside of this box, underneath these foam peanuts, is the bed plate that I sold on eBay, and I am finishing packaging it up and taking it to the post office. I just finished dealing with all the paperwork stuff. It is all paid for and taken care of, so I'm going to head to the post office and ship this out. I'm also getting my vaccine while I'm there, and I have a needle phobia. Deep breath, Joel, deep breath. Alright YouTube, that just about does it for this video, and like I promised, there is going to be a rant about an update inside of an update, and that is that it does look like I am going to be moving. Those of you who follow my videos probably heard me talking about the fact that I am going to be moving across the country to another province to work on Bombardier equipment, and it's almost a sure thing now. I will be moving in a couple of weeks. So I've been preparing for that for about a week now, and yeah, gotta get the garage ready so that Megan can park her car in here and do all the regular winter stuff that I normally do at this time of the year. I have been doing a little bit of work on this, whatever you want to call it, handlebar pod thing. I got the area around the trim knob filled in, but unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to take the hull with me, and so this is going to have to wait until next spring because I can't continue building this piece unless I have the hull with me to actually fit this on and take it off and make sure that I get everything aligned properly. So that is definitely going to have to wait, as is a bunch of other things. Now I guess we should talk about the practicality of me taking some stuff with me to build composite parts. I'll kind of run through quickly what I would need to take and then how it gets even more complicated than that. But basically I would need to take my molds with me. So I've got my bed plate mold, ride plate mold, vent mold, and then just basically use a piece of glass to do the layup for the tunnel stuffers. On top of that, there are all of these rolls of material. This is all stuff that I use. Then there is my vacuum pump, vacuum chamber, the waxes, the tack stuff, the mold release. And then there's stuff that, little things that I don't necessarily need but would come in handy. My glue gun, my heat gun, which is here. And then stuff that I definitely couldn't take with me, like the blasting cabinet. I use that to trim up all the major big stuff that I have to cut off pieces. I use this thing to do a lot of trimming. I also use my Dremel, which I keep over there by the window so that I can do detailed work with the window open. A little bit of a breeze comes through, and that way I don't get the carbon directly in my face. I do use my dust mask, which I would also have to take with me. And then I use stuff like the scales, the epoxies. There's a bunch of stuff like epoxy thickeners and coloring. And one big thing, the oven. I definitely couldn't take the oven with me, and you need a dedicated oven because you can't be cooking epoxy or composites in an oven that you're going to cook food in. That is just a no-no. Even if I could take, a lot of that stuff with me, excluding the blasting cabinet and the oven, I could take all the other stuff with me, really. There is still the issue of space, and by space I mean two things basically. There's actual volume of space, so my garage is a bit of a disaster, and I kind of poke fun at myself for that all the time. But part of the reason that it is a disaster is because I kind of have little zones where I keep everything. I keep all of my spools of material and stuff over here. This is where I actually do my layup. I have this table, which usually doesn't have the pump and stuff on it. This is where I use my rolls. You need a place to actually unroll the material so that you can cut pieces off. And that's where I usually do that. Over here, I keep my epoxy and the scale and all that stuff so that it doesn't get knocked over when I'm working on stuff. So I've got a bunch of chemically stuff under there. And yeah, then I have this cabinet where I keep my PVA and my polishing compound, and my free coat mold release and my wax goes in there. And then again, I use my Dremel over there. So there's all these different little areas. So it does take quite a bit of actual floor space to do this. But on top of how much area it takes, there's also the fact that it wouldn't be my space. So if I'm working on a part here and I have a vacuum leak or something, I can stay up until 1 or 2 in the morning and make sure that I've got the vacuum leak taken care of. And then I can go to bed and I can leave the garage a complete disaster, go to bed, get up sometime the next day or whatever. If it sits for 2 days, I can leave it and then I can clean it up when I have time to, or before I start and do another project. If I'm doing this in somebody else's space, that is not going to be an option. So what I'm trying to say is that even though I could do this, and I would really like to do this, because if I don't have something else to do, I'm going to be going completely stir crazy. I will be working like 8 or 10 hour days. And yeah, normally when I come home from work, what do? I work. I do more stuff. I build stuff and tinker with stuff, and I've got my lathe and my mill and my welder, and yeah, I'm always tinkering with stuff. Out there, I'm not going to have my jet ski or my mill or my lathe or my blasting cabinet or anything like that, so it would be nice to have something that I could actually, build. I am going to try to keep my YouTube channel up and running and keep you guys updated, whether that be working on Bombardier snowmobiles, test riding, out on adventures, or just whatever I happen to be up to. There is a ski hill in the area, and I do like to snowboard, so I will probably shoot a little bit of footage of that. I know a lot of you probably aren't as interested in that at all, but I'm probably just going to be filming whatever I am doing. So yeah, hopefully some of you are entertained by that. And I am going to be filming some of the trip out. I'm heading out with BJ, so that should be kind of interesting. And that is going to do it for this one, because I still have to go and edit this video so that I can get the footage off of this card so that I can film testing this tomorrow. So that is going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.